Do you know the exact moment your life breaks? For me, it was 5:12 p.m. on a Sunday. I was standing at the edge of the engagement stage, holding a bouquet of lilies, my favorite. My cheeks flushed, my heart raced, and my lips trembled, not because I was nervous, but because I was happy. I was about to marry the man I loved, and standing beside me fixing my hair, smiling as if she was truly happy for me, was my best friend, Sarah, my only sister in everything but blood. My world was perfect. Until Ian never showed up, until Sarah's phone vibrated and her face went pale, until she ran outside, heels clicking, dress flying, until someone gasped behind me, showing me a video. Ian and Sarah, together, running into a courthouse, laughing, eloped. That's what they said. My fiancé and my best friend eloped on my engagement day. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I stood there like a frozen statue in my pastel lehenga, lilies dropping petal by petal. My mother fainted. My father's face hardened. But me, I broke in silence. I kept asking myself why. Why would Ian do this? Why would she? They knew how much this meant to me. I had sacrificed everything: my career, my offers abroad, even my father's disappointment in me choosing love over legacy. I gave it all. For what? So they could humiliate me in front of hundreds? So they could turn my love story into a cautionary tale? But it didn't stop there. The tabloids the next day weren't about runaway lovers. They were about me. Cold and controlling fiancé abandoned by lover. Tech Aries loses both love and legacy. You see, I wasn't just a jilted lover. I was a liability they needed to erase. Sarah claimed I always looked down on her. Ian said I manipulated him, and suddenly, the world that had adored our couple photos began to pity him and applaud her. They moved into my old apartment. They dined at the restaurant Ian once promised to take me for our honeymoon. And the worst part, I still loved him. Even after all of it, a part of me still held on to those gentle moments he shared with me. I tried to move on. I did. I focused on work. I drowned myself in projects and proposals, but everywhere I looked he was there. In magazine interviews, on her Instagram stories, smiling like he'd never broken someone to pieces. And then, one day, I saw them in person at a gala. They weren't invited. I was. But they showed up anyway. He as her +1, her new publicist, or whatever she wanted to call him. They laughed at me, mocked me with their eyes, and that night, I ran. I ran until I couldn't breathe, right into the street, right into the headlights. I don't remember the pain. I only remember the silence afterward, the kind that seeps into your bones, that soft, dim darkness that isn't quite sleep or death, just stillness. And then I woke up, but not in a hospital, not in heaven. No. In my childhood room, posters still on the walls, my worn-out notebook stacked on the desk, and a calendar on the wall. 5 years earlier, I was 17 again. 5 years before the betrayal, before the engagement, before Ian, before Sarah turned my world inside out. I was reborn with everything. I knew everything they did to me still clear in my mind, and this time, I wouldn't let it happen. This time, I wasn't going to fall for their smiles. This time, I wasn't going to save anyone but myself. You want to know what I did next? I smiled. For the first time in a long time, I smiled because fate had handed me a second chance. Not to fix them, not to get revenge, but to rebuild me. And if anyone stood in my way again, well, let's just say This new version of me wasn't afraid to burn bridges anymore. The morning sunlight poured through my bedroom window, the same way it used to before everything shattered. But this time, I was different. I wasn't the naive girl who blindly trusted others. I was a woman reborn with memories sharp enough to cut through every lie that was coming my way. As I sat at the edge of my bed, my fingers clenched the bedsheet. My heart raced not with fear, but with fire. This time, I wouldn't waste years loving the wrong people. Downstairs, the smell of my mother's breakfast drifted up. Pancakes. Just like every Monday. My parents were still alive and well. I hadn't disappointed my father yet. I hadn't chosen iron over my education. It was all untouched. Still pure. Still fixable. I took a deep breath. The universe had given me a rare gift. A reset. But what was I going to do with it? Change everything. At school, I was greeted by the same familiar faces. Friends who would eventually betray me for gossip. Teachers who underestimated me. And then, I saw her, Sarah. She rushed toward me with her usual grin. Bright and familiar. There you are. I waited for you at the gate. I looked at her. Really? Looked at her. The same girl who'd one day stab me in the back, smiling as if she'd never tasted betrayal. But I smiled back anyway. A different kind of smile. Calm, quiet, cold beneath the surface. I nodded. Sorry. I took the long way. We walked together, just like we used to. Except this time, I wasn't feeding our friendship, I was studying it. Every word, every glance, every manipulation, wrapped in affection. Sarah was charming, yes. But she was calculated too, and iron. He hadn't even entered my life yet. But he would. I knew it. As I made my move early. In computer class, when he introduced himself, tall, confident, charming, I returned his hello with a short nod and buried myself in code. I didn't allow our fingers to brush. I didn't meet his eyes long enough to let anything spark. I wasn't going to fall this time. And yet, even from across the room, I could feel it. His curiosity, his frustration that I wasn't like the others, his desire to crack me open. But I stayed still, untouched, unbothered. Later that day, Sarah leaned closer, her voice light. He's cute, right? Iron? I shrugged. Maybe. Not my type. It was the first small brick in the wall I was building between them and me. A brick made of calm, indifference, and quiet strategy. While others were planning proms and dates, I was planning a future. One they would never see coming. That night, I opened my old journals. Read my ideas from the past. Business models. APP ideas. Notes I'd long forgotten. I took out my laptop and started working. I wasn't just going to avoid their betrayal. I was going to build something so powerful they'd never be able to touch me again. And the best part? I already knew their weaknesses. Sarah craved attention. Iron. Chase control. They were addicted to validation. And I was going to rise in silence while they begged to be seen. Weeks passed. I focused on school. Became sharper in class. Applied for tech scholarships. Took internships. Volunteered for coding marathons. I avoided parties. Ignored Sarah's hints about Iron asking about me. Politely declined when she asked me to double date with her and some guy she liked. Instead, I went to networking events. I studied quietly at coffee shops. And that's where I met him. The man who would become the unexpected twist in my story. He sat at the far end of the CF. Always reading, always observing. Sharp suit, dark eyes, mysterious energy. Much older but not in a way that made you uncomfortable. Just established. He noticed me typing away for days, and one day, he spoke. You've been working on the same project for over a week. Is it a startup or an obsession? I glanced up. Both. He smiled. Good answer. That's how it began. Not with flowers, not with promises, but with curiosity and questions. He never asked for my number, but he showed up, day after day, in the same spot, at the same time. Always watching, always offering a line of advice without asking for anything in return. I didn't know who he was, but I knew one thing: he was dangerous. Not in the way Ian had been, not like Sarah, but dangerous because, for the first time since my rebirth, someone was watching me, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to stop them. His name was Raymond, at least. That's what he eventually told me. He wasn't flashy, didn't drop hints about wealth or success like most guys trying to impress. Instead, he asked questions that made me rethink everything I thought I knew. Why do you want to build a startup? Whose approval are you chasing? Are you building for revenge or for yourself? At first, I found his curiosity invasive. But over time, I realized he saw me. The real me. Not the broken girl who once stood on a stage with a bouquet, or the naive teenager trying to win love. He saw the strategist I was becoming, the builder, the architect of her own redemption. Raymond never flirted, never crossed a line, but he left breadcrumbs of wisdom in our conversations, and somehow I kept following them. He was older, yes, maybe 30 or 32, but the kind of older that came with mystery, not distance. And unlike Ian, he didn't want to possess me. He wanted to empower me. One evening, as I pitched my new project to him over coffee, mobile app for anonymous academic mentoring, he leaned back in his seat and said calmly, "You know, I fund ideas like yours." I blinked. "What? I'm an investor," he said. "Tech, mostly. Low-key. I don't usually approach founders this early. But something about you tells me you don't just want to build an app. You want to build a legacy." I stared at him. "Why me?" His eyes held mine. "Because you already lost everything once. That makes you dangerous." A chill ran through me. He wasn't wrong. I had nothing left to fear. I nodded slowly. "So, what now?" Raymond smiled. "You send me a proper pitch deck. We talk again next week. And if I like what I see, we'll take it further." That was the moment I realized my rebirth wasn't just a second chance at avoiding heartbreak. It was a chance to become someone unstoppable. Meanwhile, Sarah was growing restless. I wasn't following her around anymore. I wasn't obsessing over boys or letting her copy my notes. And people noticed. She still tried to keep up appearances, linking arms with me in hallways, tagging me on her posts, but my replies became minimal. One afternoon, she sat beside me at lunch, lips pursed. "You're acting weird lately." I shrugged. "Just focused on what? You barely talk to Ian. He's been trying to flirt with you for weeks." I sipped my juice. "Not interested." She paused, then laughed awkwardly. "What? Since when?" "You used to blush just looking at him." I met her eyes. "Yeah. Well, we all grow up eventually, don't we?" That look on her face, the flash of insecurity behind the practiced smile, was satisfying in a quiet way. She didn't like not being the center of my universe, and Ian, he was getting annoyed. He started showing up at my locker, dropping cheesy lines, offering to help with group projects he didn't even understand. I kept my responses neutral, distant, professional, because I knew where that road led, and I was never going back there again. 2 months later, I pitched my project to Rami officially. He sat across from me in a glass office in the city, hands folded, expression unreadable. I laid out the app scalability, revenue model, user interface, ideas, everything. When I finished, he sat back and said, "I'm in." Just like that, he wired the seed funding within a week. We signed agreements, got legal support, set up a small team. And I, still in high school, still just a girl, in the eyes of many became a founder.no press.no announcements. Just focus and fire. And I kept my distance from Sarah and Ian, watching as they danced around each other, flirting, confusing, pushing, pulling. It wasn't love. It was echo. Sarah wanted what I didn't give her anymore: attention. Ian wanted what he couldn't get anymore: control. But I was no longer in that game. I was building something bigger, and soon they would feel it. You know what happens when the people who underestimated you start to hear whispers of your success. They panic, they scramble, they try to pull you back down. But I had already climbed too far, too high, and I wasn't alone anymore. The air had changed, not just around me but around them. Whispers started flowing through the school corridors about a teenage tech founder, about a scholarship girl who landed investment before graduation, about someone who wasn't chasing parties or popularity but something much bigger. It didn't take long for the rumors to reach Sarah or Ian. One afternoon, I caught Sarah leaning across another girl's desk, whispering, "She's pretending. She doesn't care about boys because she thinks she's better than us now." The girl nodded politely, but I saw her eyes flick toward me with a hint of awe. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. I had work to do. Rami's team and I launched the beta version of my app 6 months before graduation. We named it Shadowboard, a platform for students to anonymously connect with top mentors, share notes, vent safely, and get support without fear of judgment. It blew up within 2 weeks. Teachers started noticing increased engagement in class. Students whispered about getting secret help from alumni and professionals. One evening, Rami called, "You just hit 50,000 users." I froze. My hand trembled slightly. "You're kidding?" "Nope," he said. "And a major VC firm just reached out. They want a meeting." I covered my mouth. I hadn't even finished high school, but I was already being taken seriously in a world where people like Ian only dreamed of being noticed. Back at school, I walked through the halls with my head held higher. I didn't flaunt. I didn't brag. But my silence held power now. I was no longer the girl they pitied. I was the storm they didn't see coming, and then they tried to pull me back in. Ian approached me after class one day, leaning against the wall like a cheap drama lid. "Hey, I heard you've been busy with some app thing." I kept my expression neutral. "Yeah, just something small I'm working on." He smirked. "Must be nice. Everyone's talking about you. Even Sarah's impressed." I tilted my head slightly. "That's rare." He laughed nervously, scratching his neck. "You know, we never got to really hang out. Maybe we should fix that." I met his eyes. Calm, cool, cruel if I wanted to be. "I think I've outgrown that idea, Ian." He blinked. "What?" "I used to think you were the goal. But now, I see you were just a detour." He stood there, stunned. And for once, he had no smooth comeback. Just silence. Sarah didn't take it as lightly. She cornered me near the parking lot a few days later. "What's going on with you? Ignoring your friends? Acting like some CEO?" I stared at her. "Because I am one," she scoffed. "Don't flatter yourself. One app doesn't make you powerful. Neither does stealing someone else's love, I replied calmly. Her face flushed red. What are you talking about? You know exactly what I'm talking about. Her expression cracked for a split second like she saw a ghost of the future I remembered. You think you're so special now, she spat. But you'll fall. Just like the rest of us, I smiled. That's the difference, Sarah. I've already fallen. And I survived. The rest of the year flew by. College offers poured in. Tech companies reached out. And on graduation day, I stood on stage not for love, not for applause, but for me. My parents were there, beaming. Sarah sat near the back, clapping slowly. Ian didn't show. I guess rejection hurts more when it comes from someone you once thought would always chase you. But I wasn't chasing anyone anymore. I was building, becoming, breathing fully for the first time. And as I left the school behind, I knew the real story was just beginning, because one day the world would know my name and they'd be nothing but a forgotten footnote. After graduation, I didn't celebrate like most .no wild parties .no dreamy vacations. Instead, I moved into a small apartment above an old bookstore, armed with nothing but a laptop, an idea, and a new fire in my soul. Shadowboard had grown faster than any of us expected. Students across the country were logging in daily, mentors were requesting official partnerships, and colleges wanted to integrate it into their curriculum. And behind it all me, not the girl they once pitied, not the broken fiancé they once laughed at, but a rising name in the startup world, whispered in boardrooms and forums. Rami stayed in the picture, but never too close. He didn't hover, didn't manipulate. He guided like a lighthouse present, patient, but never steering their ship for me. One night, over a quiet dinner, he looked at me and said, "You've built something special." I shrugged, sipping tea. Still feels like I'm just getting started. That's the best part, he said. The hunger. Never let it fade. I smiled. But inside, I was already planning, because there was still something I hadn't done. I hadn't faced them. Months later, I was invited to speak at a National Youth Entrepreneur Summit. Keynote speaker. Main stage. The press was buzzing. My name trended. Photos of the once timid student turned founder spread like wildfire. That's when I got the message. From Sarah, saw your name in the news. Congrats. Let's catch up. No apology. No acknowledgement. Just her acting like nothing ever happened. I didn't reply, but I knew she'd show up. She always craved the spotlight even if she had to cling to someone else's glow to find it. The summit was held at the Grand Regent, ironically, the same hotel where my engagement was once meant to be. Poetic, isn't it? I walked into the ballroom in a sleek black jumpsuit, minimal jewelry, and quiet confidence. The crowd applauded. Cameras flashed. Investors nodded. I wasn't the background girl anymore. I was the moment. And just as I stepped off the stage, I saw him, Ian, standing at the side of the hall in a black suit. But not attending, serving. He was holding a tray, a server, a driver, maybe. His eyes met mine, frozen, ashamed. He bowed slightly and walked away. It took everything in me not to let the past flood back in. But I had healed too far to drown now. Sarah was there too, hovering near the exit, pretending to chat with someone important. But I didn't stop to greet her. I didn't need to, because the version of me she once knew, the one who begged for her friendship, who cried over betrayal, that girl was gone. I wasn't here for revenge. I was here to rise. Later that night, while heading to the parking lot, I heard footsteps behind me. Wait. I turned. It was Ian out of uniform. Eyes tired, breath heavy. Just give me a second, he said. I said nothing. He stepped closer, eyes flicking between my face and the ground. I messed up. I know I did. I was stupid, and I hurt you. And every day since, I've regretted it. I folded my arms. And I miss you. I laughed quietly. You miss what you had, not what you valued. I didn't know she'd Sarah. She changed. She only wanted me when I had money. When it was gone, he trailed off. I waited. So what now? I asked. You want me to forgive you? Take you back? He looked desperate. Just give me a chance to prove I've changed. I shook my head slowly. No, his face fell. Why not? I took a step forward. Because I didn't rise from the ashes just to carry the same fire that burned me. Then I walked away, and for the first time, he didn't follow. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't second guess. I sat by my window, laptop glowing beside me, watching the city lights. I had let go, completely, and it felt like freedom, not loud, not dramatic, just still, like the final chapter of a painful book, closed and shelved. I didn't expect the storm to pass so quietly. There were no fireworks of closure, no poetic endings, just stillness, a subtle silence that replaced the ache I'd carried for so long. And in that silence, I poured myself into Shadowboard, expanded it internationally, and secured a second round of funding. Schools across Europe began adopting the model. Interviews rolled in Forbes, Tech Digest, Youth Innovators Weekly. The girl they'd once called a discarded fiancée, now hailed as a tech visionary. But the truth, I didn't care for the labels anymore. What mattered was that I was finally living for me. One evening, as I returned from a conference, I found Remy waiting outside my apartment building. It had been a while since we last saw each other. He'd been busy expanding his portfolio. I'd been too caught up in scaling mine. But there he was, hands in his pockets, leaning casually against the brick wall, like he wasn't the man who helped change the trajectory of my life. You haven't returned my last email, he said with a teasing tilt of his head. I've been swamped, I figured. I came to deliver news in person. He handed me an envelope. Inside, a single sheet of paper. An acquisition offer from one of the largest educational tech companies in the world. For Shadowboard. I stared at the number on the page, unsure whether to laugh or cry. That many zeros can't be real. They are, he said, smiling. You've done something extraordinary. They want you on the board too, not just the product. I blinked. It was happening. The dream, the impossible dream I'd built from ashes, was becoming legacy. I nodded slowly. Okay, let's do it. Remy didn't say anything at first. He just studied me for a moment, as if measuring how far I'd come. You're not the same girl from that coffee shop, he finally said. No, I replied. I buried her in silence, right next to the girl who waited for apologies. For a moment, we stood there, nothing between us but a quiet understanding. Then he asked something that made my heart pause. So what now? I opened my mouth to reply, but hesitated, because for the first time in years, I didn't know. My entire existence had revolved around proving I could rise. Now I had. So what came next? Maybe living for real, not to escape pain, not to fight shadows, but simply to live. I handed the envelope back and smiled. Now, I said, we breathe. That night, I did something I hadn't done since my rebirth. I wrote in a journal. Not code, not plans, not revenge notes. Just feelings. Gratitude. Hope. Freedom. It was almost unsettling to have no one left to beat. No ex to expose. No backstabbing friend to confront. Sarah had tried messaging me again. This time, not to fake pleasantries, but to ask for a job. I didn't even open it. Some stories don't need sequels, they need closure. And I was done handing out screen time to people who wrote me out of their own. The next morning I booked a flight to Tokyo. Just because I could. For the first time, I was chasing nothing. Not love, not approval, not validation. Just sunrise in a new city, a foreign skyline. An unfamiliar peace. I didn't know where life was heading anymore. But I knew one thing. I was finally the author of my own story. And that story was only just beginning. Tokyo was nothing like home. It was cleaner, quieter. The kind of quiet that wasn't lonely, it was liberating. I spent the first 3 days wandering aimlessly. No schedules, no strategy. Just soaking in neon lights, midnight ramen, vending machines full of poetry. One evening, I found myself in a hidden tea house in Shibuya. Minimalist, warm, the kind of place you'd miss if you weren't lost on purpose. There, I met someone who didn't know anything about my past. His name was Sora. He was a writer, freelance, lived above the tea house, spoke little, listened deeply. We started talking over jasmine tea, about mundane things, weather, stories. The best place to find tech or aka.it was gentle. No push, just two strangers in a moment neither planned. I didn't tell him who I was, not the headlines, not the heartbreak, not the resurrection. I was just a liner. A girl who liked hot tea and quiet bookstores. He didn't ask for more. He didn't need more. And that, somehow, was everything. Over the next few weeks, Sora and I started meeting regularly, sometimes for tea, sometimes to write in silence across from each other, sometimes just to walk without touching, without speaking much. One evening, as we watched the cherry blossoms fall in a quiet park, he finally asked, "What brought you to Tokyo?" I stared at a petal on my palm. "Closure," I said softly. "Did you find it?" I looked up. At his gentle eyes, the unspoken patience in them. "No," I whispered. I let it go. He didn't pry. He just nodded. That's when I realized I was finally healing, not from revenge or validation, but from peace. And that peace had a name now. Sora. Weeks became 2 months. I extended my stay. The board meetings at home were virtual now. I was still CEO, still powerful, but somehow Tokyo softened the sharp edges of my armor. One afternoon, I brought Sora to a tech startup exhibit. He was skeptical. "I don't do tech," he said. "You do stories," I replied. "This is where stories begin." He didn't expect it. The way the panelists greeted me like royalty, the way interns whispered my name behind their programs, the glowing logo of Shadowboard spinning behind glass like it belonged in a museum. When we left, he looked at me differently. "Alina," he said slowly, "who are you?" I paused. Then I told him everything. From the betrayal to the death to the rebirth, and the empire I built in silence. I expected him to be shocked to pull away. But he didn't. He took a breath and said, "So you didn't just let go. You rewrote your ending." I smiled. "No," I said. "I'm still writing." Sora became more than a companion. He became home. He didn't love me because I was powerful. He loved me because I had learned how to stand alone, if needed, but still let someone stand beside me. It was strange. I had fought so hard to rise above pain. And somehow, love found me again. Not because I needed it, but because I finally didn't. But life has a way of testing your peace. And mine came in the form of an email. Subject: request for interview. Iron Raman, driver turned whistleblower. My blood ran cold. I clicked. He was doing a public piece about his fall from grace, and he mentioned me, used my name, my story as part of his redemption arc. Without permission, I could have crushed it in a phone call, called legal, had it buried, but instead, I replied, "You want truth? Let's go live together. Let them see who we both really are." The studio was sterile. Cameras, lights, scripted questions. But I came with no notes, just clarity. Ian walked in, wearing a suit to sizes too big and a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. When the host asked about our past, he said, "She was always smarter." I didn't realize it then. I do now. I nodded slowly. "You saw me as backup. I became the blueprint." Silence. Cameras rolling. Ian looked at me. "Do you hate me?" I met his eyes. Calm. Certain. "No. I thank you." A hush fell. "You broke me." But breaking was what set me free. When the interview aired, the internet lit up. Some praised me, some pitied him. But none of it mattered anymore, because I didn't need the world to pick sides. I had picked myself. And this time, there was no going back. The interview rippled across every platform for a week. My inbox flooded with speaking invitations, podcast requests, even a book deal offer. But I didn't feel like celebrating, not because I was sad, but because I was full of peace, full of clarity, full of something I never had before: wholeness. Raymai called to say congratulations. "You know what this means, right?" he asked. "What? You've outgrown your origin story?" He was right. For so long, my story had started with betrayal. Now, it started with rebirth, and it could finally grow from there. Sora and I spent an entire weekend in Kyoto. No tech, no notifications. Just silence, bamboo forests, and stories exchanged under the stars. That night, he touched my hand and asked, "Have you ever been truly happy?" I turned to him. "I am now, and I meant it. Not a forced happiness, not the kind you pretend to wear like a crown, but real, grounded contentment, the kind that doesn't scream. It hams." When we returned to Tokyo, something unexpected waited for me at the concierge desk. A letter. No stamp. No sender's name. Just my name written in delicate, almost trembling cursive. I opened it. Inside 3 short paragraphs. "Elena, I don't expect you to forgive me. But I wanted you to know what I did to you was never because you weren't enough. It was because I never believed I was worthy of what you offered. Sarah used that weakness. I let her. She's gone now. Took everything. But that's not why I'm writing. I just wanted to say that your strength changed me. Maybe not in time to keep you, but enough to finally look in the mirror." Ayani read the letter twice, then set it on fire in a ceramic bowl, not out of anger, but because it didn't belong to my future. It was residue, and my life had no room left for leftovers. A few days later, I flew home, not because I had to, because I wanted to close the circle, not with revenge but with grace. I visited my parents, now proud beyond words. My father, once skeptical, now introduced me to neighbors as the genius who built a company before she could legally rent a car. At a local CAF, I ran into a girl from high school. She looked at me like I was a dream. Is it true? You turned down 5 million for your APP. I smiled gently. Some things are worth more than numbers. As I turned to leave, a little girl tugged my sleeve. She whispered, "You look like someone who saves people." And I knelt down and told her, "I only saved one person. Me." Sora arrived a week later, met my parents, ate my mom's biryani, laughed at my father's jokes, sat beside me under the mango tree he used to climb as a child. We watched the sky turn gold. He looked at me and said, "You've outgrown your past." I nodded. "But I needed it to become this version of me." "You think pain is necessary for growth?" he asked. "No," I said. "But forgiveness is." Later that week, Raymai surprised me at a community event where I was speaking to young girls about tech and resilience. He watched from the back, arms crossed, half smiling. When it ended, I walked over. "You're still watching?" I teased. He laughed. "Always." Then he pulled out a small box. Inside, an offer letter for me to become executive director of a new global initiative for girls in STEM, funded by one of the largest foundations in Asia. I figured it's time to pass the MIC, he said. "And you're the voice." My hands trembled slightly, not from fear, from purpose. This wasn't about revenge or legacy. It was about impact, and I was finally ready. That night, as I stared out the hotel window, city lights like stars below, I felt something inside me shift. I had been reborn once, but this was evolution. The Girls' Initiative launched with a quiet ceremony. No flash, no red carpet, just a room filled with daughters, sisters, dreamers, some in mismatched uniforms, some in hand-me-down sneakers, but all with fire in their eyes. And I stood at the podium, not as the victim of an old betrayal, but as a mentor, a builder of bridges I once wished existed for me. "My name is Alina," I said, "and no one ever handed me a map, but I drew one. And now I'm passing the pen to you." Applause followed, but the real moment happened afterward, when one girl, no older than 13, walked up to me and whispered, "You're the reason I didn't give up." I knelt to meet her eyes. "You are the reason I kept going." Life moved in ripples now. No explosions, no drama, just deep, steady waves of meaning. Sora and I moved into a shared apartment in Singapore, halfway between his writing contract and my foundation's new headquarters. We lived simply. Quiet mornings, shared to-do lists, grocery runs that ended with impulse dessert buys. He never tried to complete me. He simply walked beside me. And I, for the first time, allowed someone to do that without fearing they'd slow me down. We weren't a fairy tale. We were something stronger, rooted. And then came the twist I never saw coming. An email from a private law firm in Paris. Subject: unclaimed inheritance. Sarah Militars. Satter. I blinked. Sarah. It had been nearly a year since I'd last heard her name. The message was vague. "You were listed as an emergency contact in her last will and testament." I flew to Paris the next day. Not for her, but for closure. The lawyer explained everything. Sarah had left the country years ago, moved from job to job, eventually settled in Lyon, struggled quietly. She'd never married Ian, never spoke to him again. Apparently, her health declined. Liver failure. No one even knew until it was too late, and in her final days, she listed me, not her family, not her friends, just me. She left behind a small apartment, some savings, and a locked wooden box with my name carved underneath. I opened it slowly. Inside, a single photo, of us. At age 15. Matching friendship bracelets. Sunlight in our hair. Laughing like betrayal wasn't even part of our vocabulary yet. And a note, you never deserved what I did to you. I didn't know how to protect something so good. I thought breaking it would make it mine. But you were always meant to fly. I was just the storm that taught you how to. Tears slipped down my cheek before I even noticed. Not for what we were, but for what we could have been. I buried her quietly. No press. No headline. Just a simple grave beneath an old tree. And when I walked away, I didn't look back, because forgiveness isn't forgetting. It's choosing peace where pain could grow, and I made the choice again. Back in Singapore, I found Sora typing in our shared workspace, earbuds in, hair messy. I stood at the door for a long moment, watching, realizing that life hadn't just given me a second chance. It had given me new chapters, ones I never thought I'd live to write. He looked up and smiled. You okay? I nodded. Yeah, I said. I'm finally ready to start again. He grinned. Start what? A new story. That evening, I began writing. Not code, not business plans, but my story. The real one. The rebirth. The love. The loss. The rise. A book. For girls like me. A manual for surviving silence. I titled it, The Day They Left, I Found Re, and for the first time in years, I knew how it would end. The pages of my book felt heavy in my hands, though the words inside were light and raw. Every sentence was a whisper of my past, every paragraph a breath of my rebirth. I had finally put my pain, my triumphs, my love, and my losses into words, a legacy not just for myself, but for every girl who ever felt invisible. The launch event was intimate. Not the flashy galas I had attended before, but a cozy gathering in a small, sunlit library surrounded by faces eager to listen, to learn, to be inspired. Sora stood by my side, quiet and steady, his hand brushing mine from time to time, grounding me. I opened the book and began to read aloud. They left me betrayed, broken, erased. But in that void, I found myself. I found a fire no one could put out. I found strength where I thought only weakness lived. I found love, not the kind that consumes, but the kind that frees. The room was silent, not because they were waiting, but because they were feeling every word, feeling the courage in vulnerability. Afterward, a young woman approached me, eyes glistening. You gave me hope, she said. Hope I thought was gone. I smiled. Then keep it alive. Life was no longer a battle. It was a melody, a gentle rhythm of purpose and peace. Sora and I moved to a quiet neighborhood with leafy streets and bookstores on every corner. We wrote side by side, him weaving his tales of distant lands, me crafting stories of resilience and rebirth. One evening, as twilight wrapped around us like a soft blanket, Sora reached out, fingers brushing my cheek. You're home, he whispered. I closed my eyes. For the first time, home wasn't a place or a person. It was a feeling. The past no longer haunted me. Sarah, Aryan, the heartbreak, they were chapters in a book I'd already closed. But the story was mine, written not by betrayal or loss, but by hope, courage, and love. And as the moon rose over the city skyline, I whispered to myself, this is only the beginning. Thanks for watching. Hoped you liked it. If you watched till the end, please comment "end" so that we could understand you were with us till the end. As well as, please let us know, where are you watching from? Before leaving, please hit the subscribe button, comment your thought, and share with your nearest. And dearest one, see you in the next one. Until to the next one, spread love.